And I think there's a danger with awards that you can produce work that is award winning, and that could potentially compromise the outcome of that work.
Today we got Simon Forster on the podcast. You put out a LinkedIn post, which I think struck a nerve, and it was about awards and not buying into these awards. And then you got picked up by some newspapers and some publications. So let's kind of just touch on that a little bit, and then we'll kind of get into who you are and what your team does.
Every year, this time of year, then I see a load of industry peers kind of posting about how delighted they are to have won one of various design awards. And they're all, extremely illustrious and what people tend to go for in the industry. Having never entered awards, I just find it interesting that would be everybody's strategy to chase the same essentially business development tools, because if everybody's doing the same thing, how is that making you stand out? And ultimately the reason why we've never entered awards is very early on, our first team member, who's now creative director, asked, why do we not enter awards? And I was like, dude, do you realize how much they cost to enter? And he was like, no fucking way. Like, it blew his mind that, it would actually cost to pay to play. And I think that's the thing, like from our point of view as a startup, we were limited funds, and in order to be involved, we couldn't afford to be. So as we've grown, obviously we've grown in stature, our budgets have grown, but do we want to use awards as a way of getting exposure? And I just don't think it's necessary. Certainly for us, it's not. Our reward comes from our work delivering results for our clients. And I think there's a danger with awards that you can produce work that is award winning, and that could potentially compromise the outcome of that work.
Do clients of design agencies care if you've won an award? Like, what does it really mean to them?
I don't think anyone cares. I think that's the interesting part for me. It's actually, if you call bullshit on it, does anybody care? I don't think so. I think there's creatives are quite precious, and there's sometimes a bit of ego, but really, nobody in my team's ever gone, please, can we try and be an award-winning agency? And equally, no clients ever said, is this work going to win an award? So
yeah, because what do clients want?
They want to look good within their organization for, increased sales or capturing a new demographic or whatever that creative brief is aiming to achieve commercially.
Where does this disruptive attitude come from, right? I think I sense, you've got the skateboards in the background. I kind of sense this like punk ethos kind of flowing through the agency just from the work. You guys launched a product called Stories in Ink. So there's like the tattoos, the attitude. Like, where did all this begin?
It began early on, I guess. Before my career, I was a skateboarder. I was a singer in a thrash punk band. So I've always been a bit angsty, I guess. I can't rock a mohawk anymore, but I probably would if I could. And I guess a fundamental part in being a good creative is questioning the status quo.
What the fuck?
And it always brings opportunity. So, for Robot Food, our aim is always to create disruption for brands, whether that be, visually disruptive or emotionally disruptive, and connect in a way with consumers that competitive brands can't. And that's why people come to us. They want to have that edge. They want to have that moment of magic that connects with a consumer and makes other brands feel irrelevant.
All right, let's listen to that again.
They want to have that edge. They want to have that moment of magic that connects with a consumer and makes other brands feel irrelevant.
All right, let's take a quick second to talk about idpdirect.com. Go right to that website, download the design guides, the sustainability guides, the recyclable icon guide, which basically lists out all the different icons. It gives them to you in vectors. You can drop them right into your artwork right now, today, and go right into production. All right, back to the pod.
And that only comes from generally when you work in a category, or, every business and every brand, they tend to look around them and they like to fit in. and they want to seem just like, an estate agency wants to look like an estate agency, just like every other estate agency. And it's the same with FMCG consumer brands. They tend to be inward looking, so that you end up in a situation where you walk down the aisle, and all laundry detergents look exactly the same, and they talk the same way, and they all fit in. And it's only when somebody goes, what the hell are we doing? Why are we selling these massive products transported full of water in plastic containers? And then suddenly you can start with, you start with why, and then you think about what actually the consumer might want, and you can create a new way of selling that type of product in a new format, in a new look, talking in a new language, and resonate with the consumer in a new way. And that's the exciting part. So it all starts by asking why. And when I started Robot Food, I didn't have any background in design. I'd kind of been to art college. I'd done a bit of design. I knew that I wanted to do something creative, but ultimately I started my career running a surfskate brand that I'd seen in California, knew would do well in the UK. It was called Counterculture. It was started with a loan from Joey Ramone. And
that's crazy.
That's where I learned. That's where I fell in love with brand, and a lot of those learnings from my time in kind of skate surf clothing that was applied to commercial brands, and it just different thinking always brings good results. So
any connection back to Joey Ramone is always awesome, right? Like if you're growing up in punk, you're like, oh man, that's just like a bonus. It's like, as I look at like Robot Food, your own brand has that disruptive feel, right? It's definitely going against the grain, not just because of the awards, but just the way that your site, the way that your site talks, the way that you communicate. And it seems like if we look at a lot of agencies, it's kind of the same as the detergent aisle, right? They're all kind of saying the same thing because they're all targeting the same clients. And I guess as creatives, we kind of forget that we're not the ones that go with the flow. We're the ones that go against it. We're the ones that kind of create the flow. But I think what happens is, like, when we talk about like awards, if you win an award today, you're going to have to submit for next year, because you don't want to be the one that's got, I won an award in 1993, because now it looks like,
that's my biggest reason for avoiding entering them is, shit, if we won, we'd be trapped in that cycle. It's an amazing business model, but it's not appealing to me as an agency.
Yeah, and then you talk about the cost.
Yeah, there are agencies that literally employ people specifically to enter awards. Like there's an art to copywriting your entry. There's a way around, maximizing that opportunity. And if you don't know those tricks, then you're at a disadvantage. So agencies actually set up, people and departments for obtaining awards, which is insane. And what was interesting is when I called it out is it seems to be something that is swelling that kind of general view that, it's about time that the lid was lifted on this craziness. It's beyond our industry. There's completely different industries where, they were chipping in with comments saying, yeah, and the more places at a table at the awards ceremony you buy, the more likely you are to win. And if you sponsor the event, that puts you at an advantage. And, that's just the way awards are. And interestingly, like we offered to give £5,000 to 5 charities, and one of our suppliers, who's a packaging manufacturer, he loved what we were doing and the fact that we were calling it out, and he actually offered to match our donations to the same charities. So it's pretty cool how quick it took off. And yeah, I'd rather cut through in an interesting way than play the same game as everybody else.
Yeah, and somebody might be thinking, well, you're donating $5,000. That's a lot. That's a lot of money. But if you won, for example, a Cannes Lion, the trophy itself is $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know if you saw that guy that just posted recently. He launched a new website with all the different online trophies. He's got the 3D files for it. He's like, you can just print your own, because they're 10 grand. So even if you win, you're like, oh, I can't even afford to win.
Yeah, I heard that Lando Norris had to pay something like $55,000 for his first trophy. I'd be like, you can keep it. Everyone saw that. Everyone saw I won.
If finding your spec data is a wild goose chase around your office, you've got a data problem. Specr is the only cloud-based management specification solution that every brand needs. Because if you don't spec right, you'll spec wrong.
No, that's the crazy part is, people don't realize, like, to win an award, it costs money to win an award. It costs money to enter. And then if you win, it costs even more. And then if you want to promote it, it costs even more. And there's a lot of these fees in there. And I guess that's kind of it. Like, as a young designer, like going through school, you kind of fall in love with the ideas of these awards because you see these agencies that you admire and you're like, oh, they won this award. I want to submit. I want to be a part of that group as well. And that's the tough part for them. So I think seeing you going, yeah, this is bullshit.
I think you're right. I think the expectation probably comes through studying design at university, which I never did. I think people are told that certain awards are prestigious, and I guess certainly at a time when a lot of my team would have been through university, kind of predominance of online publication. There were probably some books that were pretty powerful and promoting work that was award winning, and I dare say it probably had more relevance at that time. But in this day and age, just getting your work out there and having it seen, the fact that you're aware of our work, it just comes from the fact that we do some okay PR and we do some nice work, so it gets seen.
Yeah, that's just it. It's all about the work, right?
Yeah,
that's all that matters.
Well, I'd rather keep it all about the work and all about delivering on that client's objective rather than twisting that brief into something that could be creatively award-winning. There's a good analogy with Oppenheimer versus Barbie because Oppenheimer cleaned up with the awards, but arguably Barbie's a better film.
Yeah, oh man, I try to sit through. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna sit down. I got ready to watch Oppenheimer. I'm like, it's won all these awards. It's gotta be good. I was out. I was like asleep in like 30 minutes. I couldn't get through it.
So I heard those peer reviews and I convinced my daughter to go and see Barbie. She was like, I don't even like Barbie. I was like, I want to see what it's all about. And I wore a pink t-shirt and everything.
Man, it was good. It was a million times better than Oppenheimer.
It was a great concept, and it was a brave film, and it deserved some accolade. But yeah, it didn't have the formula, unfortunately.
Yeah, but that was it too. It was disrupting what movies were.
Yeah,
much in the same way as like the Lego movie disrupted how animation worked, right? Like all of a sudden, the entire product was the movie. It was a 2-hour commercial. Barbie was kind of the same, but a little different. Where Oppenheimer is just another same old movie.
Yeah.
So when we talk about your work, how do you get started? I know you talk about asking why, but if I look through some of like the work, like the Fritz Cola, like the Stories in Ink, like some of these projects, like where does that start and how does your team kind of challenge the status quo?
It's quite a long process. And it's funny because often in the initial meeting, somebody will from the client side will ask, what do you think? And at that stage, it's always like, I have no idea. You have absolutely no idea because ultimately we're not trying to push our objective. We go into it without one. It's more about listening, understanding. We do kind of broad interviews with all kinds of people who work within an organization, find out where the pain points are. Often clients will come to us with a creative brief, but actually once you do a deep dive, you'll kind of play it back to them and question, is that exactly what you're looking for? Because it seems as if you've got some issues over here, and we like to help shape that brief with the client. And then from that, it's all about brand positioning. And often often clients will come to us feeling that they have a positioning in place, but if it's not robust enough or human enough, we'll want to help define and add to that. Because once you have the positioning, then you can start thinking about, right, what's that creative platform that you can own? And it kind of, I guess it used to be the case that brands would go to a branding and packaging agency for a new design of the brand and the packaging. Then they go to an above the line agency and they'll be like, what about our comms? And what we're seeing is more and more people are coming to us asking for that positioning piece. And then the creative piece that comes from that is that core creative idea that can drive everything. So often it will start with brand and packaging, but simultaneously we might be working on, the whole visual brand world, because more and more brands turn up in a digital space, or and it's how do we communicate across every touch point, and the comms forms part of that.
Pop quiz, everybody.
Do you agree or disagree with Simon? Is it worth the cost of admission to enter your packaging for a design award? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe. We'll see you next time.